Alrighty, so we're going to be looking at Pythagoras today out of our trigonometry and Pythagoras topic. So with Pythagoras, there are different types of sides that we need to name, and so we're going to introduce a name of a new word that you probably haven't heard before, but that is the hypotenuse. Often that's represented with an H, and this is the longest side. Now, this is on a right angle triangle. We can tell this because it's the one that the right angle kind of points out towards. So the right angle points out to the hypotenuse. So using Pythagoras, we can find, as long as we know two sides, we can find the third side. And so we're going to go through, when we're finding the hypotenuse, the longest side, and then we're going to go through finding one of the shorter sides. So with this triangle here, you can see this is pointing out towards our hypotenuse, so we don't know that. So if we are finding the hypotenuse, we use the formula a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace the letters with what we have on our diagram there. So the question mark, which is our c squared, is just going to become x squared. And then one of the sides a is going to become 5 squared, and 8 is going to be the b squared. So what I've done is just replaced what is on the diagram with what's in the formula. From there, I can work out what 5 squared and 8 squared is. So 5 squared is 25, and 8 squared is 64. Remember, squared is times a number by itself, so 5 times 5 and 8 times 8. Then I can add those two together, 25 plus 64, and that comes out to be 89. And that's x squared equals 89. But we want to know what x equals. So to get rid of the squared, we need to do the opposite or the inverse of it. And so we take the square root. So I'm going to take the square root of 89. And that will come out with a long decimal. But we're going to round it to 2 decimal places, typically for measurements. And so we've got 9.43 meters. So just to repeat, we put the information from the diagram into our equation. Then we did the kind of BEDMAS, so we used the powers first, so we squared, then we added together, and then finally to get rid of the squared on the other side, we took the square root. That's when you're finding a long side. Now, when we're finding a shorter side, which is the hypotenuse, when we're finding the shorter side, the equation changes a little bit. So it was a squared plus b squared equals c squared, but we could rearrange that formula, and then it looks like this: b squared equals c squared minus a squared. Now what that means is, from this previous one, we added the side squared plus the side squared, and it equaled that side squared. But if we already know the hypotenuse, the longer side, we can figure out the shorter side by going this side, take away this side squared. So we've got, again, we're going to put our information into our formula. So this time we've got the side we don't know, b, is our x squared. C is our hypotenuse, our longest side, so it's 5 squared. And 2 is our shorter side, which is 2 squared. So we go 5 squared, take away 2 squared. Now 5 squared is 25, and 4 squared is 2. And 25 take away 4 is 21. And then finally, to get rid of the squared, we need to do the square root. And so the square root of 21 is 4.58. Now, it's important to make sure your answer is rounded and has units. So to talk between the two, if we're finding hypotenuse, so the long side, the right angle points out to it, we're going to add those two sides squared together. If we're finding the short side, so we know the hypotenuse and we know a short side, we can figure out the other short side by going the longer side squared, take away the shorter side squared, and then taking the square root of that.